But I think Jim might be able to help us answer questions about the creature's appearance, because you're very invested in the kind of visual representations of the novel. And so my first question for you is about faithfulness to the novel, right? So since you have adapted the novel yourself, and I know that a lot of adaptations have veered really far away from the novel itself, what do you think are the most important things that we do need to preserve? Why do we have to go back to the novel? What is it that we cannot lose from the novel when translating it for a modern audience?
Right. Well, I think, first of all, there's one scene, if you will, in the book, that if you don't have that scene, it's not a Frankenstein adaptation, and that's the creation scene. You can have a story about a reanimated corpse roaming around, and that's something else. That's a zombie movie or whatever. Without the actual spark of life moment, one person bestowing animation upon something that was not alive previously, it's not a riff off of the original book. And so, I mean, in my film, Prometheus Triumphant, it's more actually a replication of The Bride of Frankenstein, where there's a deformed creator who's creating, who's bringing back to life the girl he loved back when he was an intact human being. We filmed it in the boiler room of an abandoned lunatic asylum in Pennsylvania on the coldest April day you will ever experience. It was snowing through the roof. There's nudity in the scene, so I can't show it right now. But
I don't think there are any children in the audience.
Yes. Everything. It's from the thing. That's the one scene I think you gotta have. Speaking as someone who has adapted it, what we were talking earlier is that I do think that Frankenstein is one of the few pieces of fiction that is transcended from literature into being a modern myth. And a myth is something that everybody, as opposed to a piece of writing, a myth is something that everybody knows without actually having had to be taught it. It's something we as a culture just instinctively have. It's so pervasive, in our zeitgeist. But the flip side of the myth is that everybody takes a myth into their own and changes it to suit their own needs. And the myth itself doesn't suffer for that. The myth is made bigger. If you're talking about one of the Greek tragedies, Ulysses or anything, there's been innumerable permutations of that. None of those tear up the pages of the original. They just add another flavor or another color to that. And here we have this was a shirt I'm wearing actually right now. This is actually the first cinematic adaptation of Frankenstein was made by Thomas Edison in 1910, I believe, 1910, I think. Starring Charles Ogle as the monster. Early versions of the play that was written based on Frankenstein, which was performed before the advent of film. Very often the monster and Victor and the monster would be played by the same actor, or the two actors one would play Victor, one would play the monster, and then sometime during the run they would switch. There was this idea that, going back to your idea of the other, that somehow Victor had, in a very kind of more like a Jekyll and Hyde kind of thing, he had split himself, and all the mean and low characteristics had transferred to the monster, while he'd retained the so-called noble ones, which I think is a lot of hogwash, but we can get into that later. So there was this idea that the monster is a shadow version of Victor, and that persisted until basically the 31 film, which made it absolutely clear that one was Victor and the other one was the monster.
Yeah, so I actually wasn't familiar with this Edison adaptation.
It's almost a lost film. I think they found most of it and you can find it on YouTube. But I think it originally was only about 15, 20 minutes long or something. It's a short subject.
Okay. And it's interesting to me because it seems like I mean, knowing something about Edison, it seems like he was almost like identifying with Victor Frankenstein, no? The creator, the inventor.
Yes.
He was sort of identifying with that moment of inspiration.
And I think right? He thought Nikola Tesla was the monster.
But I mean, in terms of adaptation, is it that modern adaptations tend to maybe misread the novel, and because I mean, we're supposed to hate Victor Frankenstein in the novel, right? He is like the ultimate douchebag, right?
Well, yeah.
And the creature is sort of the sympathetic character, right?
I would argue that while the creature is the antagonist in the novel, he's possibly the hero. Mm-hmm. I think he's the one. He starts with nothing. He goes on a classic hero's journey of self-discovery, and he attains a greater understanding of the good and the evil that he performs. Victor is born with everything you could want for, ignores everyone's advice, defies the laws of nature and man, screws it all up, and then spends most of the rest of the novel more trying to keep it on the QT than actually atoning for the things he's done wrong. So I believe, and that's why I also believe that the book could understandably be, it could be argued that the book could be eponymously named after the creature. Victor brings the creature to life, which if it's not a natural act, it's still an act of procreation. So thereby the creature is Victor's son. He has the right to carry the surname. So as far as the argument about calling the monster Frankenstein, I actually don't think it's a complete misnomer. I think it's possible that he deserves the right to carry that name.